The culture is the most important thing. What's the culture of your company? Once I know that, I can get in and do anything.
Welcome to No More Bad Events, a fun and insightful podcast for professional event organizers and for anyone at any level interested in producing nothing but the best events. Each week, we'll talk with legendary event professionals to get an inside look into what they think makes a great event. And in the process, we'll draw out insider secrets, non-traditional approaches, and compelling stories from the most captivating personalities in the business. We'll definitely get the skinny on reaching that one big goal: no more bad events. I'm your host, Scott Bloom, comedian, event MC, and now your podcast host. Let's get started. No More Bad Events is produced and presented by eSpeakers, the most trusted, easy-to-use, full-service online platform for finding, connecting with, and hiring the best keynote speakers, hosts, and presenters in the world. With the deepest catalog of professionals available through the eSpeakers marketplace, you can be assured that the speaker you book will be the absolute best speaker based on your goals, bar none. eSpeakers, the #1 way to find your next perfect speaker. For more information, go to espeakers.com. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had that experience where you meet someone for the very first time and you immediately connect with them? It feels like you're meeting an old friend. You don't know what it exactly is, but you have this vibe. You really connect. Well, that's exactly how I felt when I met Bonni Scepkowski. First time ever meeting her was on today's episode. I really enjoyed speaking with her. She's charming, easygoing, and really understands what makes a great event. For those of you who don't know Bonni, she is the founder and principal of Stellar Meetings and Events and has focused her entire career, 30 years worth, in the life sciences industry. Her depth of knowledge in that world enables her to navigate its intricacies and nuances. And with that in mind, she produces events and experiences that are painstakingly precise, culture-specific, and designed to procure client evangelism. These curated events ingeniously weave in strategy and the wow factor. From exotic escapades in Barcelona to fabulous outdoor meetings to philanthropic team-building efforts that give back. And actually, she tells a story of a recent effort with a school for special needs kids that just about had me in tears. Yeah, I got a little choked up. Okay, it happens from time to time. No big deal. Anyway, it's apparent that Bonni loves what she does, and I'm 100% certain that you'll love hearing from her. I definitely did. I made a new friend, and now it's your turn. So let's take a listen as I chat with my newest, oldest friend, Bonni Scepkowski. You know, when I first got in the business, I was always amazed at how calm the executive producer was. You know, it had all this stuff going on, but if they've done their job right, they have everyone in place, they have everyone to deal with it. And that's what you want from the executive producer. You want them to be calm. I was amazed at how calm, because I know there's a lot of moving parts. They were very relaxed.
Juggling flaming chainsaws on a unicycle, but you have to do it. You have to know that everything's fixable. It's all fixable. It's all reparable. Things are going to go wrong constantly.
That leads me into a great question. I was going to ask you, where has something gone wrong? There are obstacles that come up. There are challenges. Do you recall one where it could have been a total disaster if you hadn't jumped in?
Yeah, actually, it pops right into my head because I get chills thinking about it, is when we all got snowed in San Diego. So
snowed in San Diego, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
So people couldn't get home. Everyone was from the East Coast. There was a huge blizzard here. The meeting went perfectly. It was so good. And the chief marketing officer got up and she started talking about how wonderful everything was. And thank you for coming. It was all their clients. And one of the sales directors literally jumped up and said, "Oh my God, Newark Airport's closed." And then it was like that scene from Airplane where everybody goes, "Ah!" and runs into each other. It was absolute. To this day, don't understand how a group of people who travel for a living could get that stressed, but they did. And it wasn't just New Jersey. It was New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Chicago. It was the entire central to East Coast. And we were stuck for 2 days. But I set up my team. It was still, not everybody had a cell phone even.
So all the attendees couldn't get home as well. Everyone could get home. There. So did you feel it upon yourself to I need to create something. I need to create a new experience for them to cover this. And I'm coming in as a hero.
Yeah. I wasn't looking at it as the hero. I guess you're always looking at it as a hero. But at that point, I was trying to ease the panic because people were really freaked out. But yeah, it was San Diego. I sent a bunch of people we got tea times at Torrey Pines. I had a bus taking people to SeaWorld. We had people going to La Jolla. So we immediately started with a reception. So I just got the hotel together to set up a bar, and we just started with the bar. And as time went on, I was like, okay, you guys all hang in the bar. And everybody had boarding passes. So I took everybody's boarding passes because I started as a travel agent. So I took all of their travel information, and we just started like a phone tree calling.
Trying just to rebook, find things,
the airlines. Take care of everything.
Yeah.
But the funny part was all of the people who said, well, what if I fly out of LA? I was like, well, Newark is still closed. What if I go to San Francisco? Yeah, Newark is still going to be closed.
Right.
And they just keep coming back with, I was thinking I could go from Vegas. Newark is still closed. But it turned into a real experience. We had a great reception, and then we had a dinner. And, this was ultimately additional time for my clients with their clients. So they were unhappy about not being able to go home, but happy about being able to have more social time with them.
You were also able to show them a side of you. I mean, they probably worked with you for a while, but showed you a side of, look at how we solved this problem. And it became another experience that they can talk about. And it probably put another feather in your cap.
There's never a time when you're problem solving for someone like me who has that disturbing, people pleasing kind of.
Codependency is a good trait to have in this industry.
Yeah. Tell me I'm good at what I do. There's never a better time than when chaos hits and you can fix it. It's incredibly satisfying. Having the projector work isn't as exciting as fixing, if the projector burst into flames and you fix that.
There's so many opportunities to create great moments with your clients. Do you look at that at different touch points throughout the meeting? You found one at the end of a meeting where there was a big disaster. You turned it into the bar. When in doubt, go to the bar. Send people to the bar. I thought when you took their airline tickets, you were going to play like some sort of, because I know we'll talk about it in a moment. I know you like to play some games. I thought it was like maybe there was some game with you had to guess where someone was flying. That would have been fun.
That would have been really fun, but they were very anxious. So they were looking for things to get fixed.
So they don't want to turn their problem into a party.
They don't want my stand-up act, which is usually what they get.
But are there other areas that you see places where you can create an experience that maybe is unique to the way you view things, or a place that you always like, hey, this is an opportunity. People don't usually jump to this, but hey, we can create something here. It's just a transit from here to here, but we can create something.
Yeah, sometimes something just pops into your head and you think these are the right people in the right time. Sometimes you'll hear about something or you'll get an idea and you're just waiting for that right person to come along. So I just did a meeting for a small group in Philly, and they're all brilliant creatives. And most of my clients are in the life sciences. So they're in the life sciences, but on the creative side as an agency. And they wanted to use storytelling, of course, very popular. And I think probably the most valid subject for people to be talking about when you're telling the story of your company, right? Every single time. And they asked if we could bring in a storyteller that had like a Philadelphia vibe. And I looked around and there were a lot of Benjamin Franklins and a lot of Betsy Rosses and things like that. And these people they're young and they're cool.
You want a more modern storyteller. You don't want Ben Franklin.
Yeah, he was a few hundred years out of their demographic. So,
I know that guy. I mean, if he's still doing it, the thing is you can't age out of Ben Franklin. You just get better at Ben Franklin.
I had the Ben Franklin guy.
Yeah.
We were on a boat and it was a bunch of boomers, like me. And, it was the right person at the right time. But what I did with these guys was bring in a slam poet.
Nice.
Who was
local Philly guy.
local Philly guy who wrote his poems about Philly and kind of blended in all of their stories and all of their ideas. I sat with him. He didn't write a new poem for us, but he modified what he
customized it.
Yeah. And we brought him up as a surprise during the first cocktail reception. So everybody gets together, they have a couple of drinks, and this guy gets up, and they were so into it because they're young and they're cool and it's different. And it set the tone, right? It fits that cohesive theme of storytelling. Have found people. I hired a band in New Orleans off the street.
Oh, everyone's done that. They've gone into Preservation Hall and they're like, oh my God, let's bring this person. Yeah. Let's bring this group in. Is that what happened? You saw them on the street, right?
On the street. These were kids.
Yeah.
That was so good. And we were doing an event that night and we didn't have entertainment, but I had the budget and they were so good and they so fit. And I needed to know that if they didn't show up, it wasn't going to hurt.
Right. Because they're not professionals.
It was going to be a surprise. I had the money already saved because we got great pricing on the event. I hadn't presented that part of the budget at the discount. That all comes at the end. And yeah, they came and they blew the doors off the place.
Now, a group like that, if you were back in New Orleans, I mean, not that they're setting up shop and doing corporate all the time, but you probably reach out to them again, right?
Absolutely. I use a lot of the same people over and over again. I have speakers that I've worked with over and over again because they're just that good and they can speak about different things. I have, my suppliers for things like giveaways and things. I've been using in most cases, the same ones for my whole career. AV people, production people, staff people, hotels. If I find a hotel that's good, I'm going to force it down the throats of clients because I just know it's going to be a better experience. It's what you want in the end. You want it to be the right place, the right time, the right people, the right everything.
Yeah, you want to be able to trust the people that you're working with. Do you want any shout out to some of the production companies that you work with or AV companies? Because you are the production company. I just want to be clear on what it is. You're the one they're coming to you to produce the event. Am I accurate?
I'm the planner.
Oh, the planner. Okay.
I'm the meeting planner. So my events have not required bringing in a production team lately, but I'm going to say Innovia out of Dallas is just a fantastic team. They are full-on partners. Always. And they're my first call. I just want to make it clear so they're not saying, well, Bonni hasn't called me in a while, but they are.
I will put that in the show notes. Bonni would like to call you more often. It's just
Mike Ruocco from
where we're staying. So what got you into the life sciences industry and why is that something that's exciting for you?
It was accidental initially. My last real job was at a biotech company and I ran their corporate travel. That was a really, really, really long time ago. In fact, they are on maybe their 9th name. The last one you would know of was GE Healthcare.
Okay. I think I might have worked with them before. What do they go by now?
Cytivia.
Okay.
The C. But when I was with them, they were Pharmacia Biotech and then Amersham Pharmacia Biotech. And I ran their travel department. And what I really wanted to be doing was more of the meetings. So I was assisting with that stuff, but it looked like fun. And I was going to leave to do that somewhere else, but they made me an offer and they created a position for me, which was great. So I started doing their meetings and loved it. They're the beach Scrabble people.
I'm always amazed. I want to hear if you have any more like that. You wonder, like, if someone hears this podcast and they're like, hey, that's a great idea, execute on it. This is a wow moment. So tell us about the infamous flight of the Valkyrie helicopter drop of tennis balls with letters and people running into the ocean.
It was the Beach Olympics. You can't be in St. Thomas without doing the Beach Olympics or something on the beach. And everyone came out to the shoreline outside of our hotel. And the opening was these 2 helicopters doing
acrobatics.
Not acrobatics, but maneuvers. They weren't flipping or anything, but they were maneuvering, kind of crossing by each other and doing all kinds of cool stuff with the blasting music coming out of the speakers at the hotel.
I said Flight of Valkyrie. I might be wrong. What is the...
It was Flight of Valkyrie.
Okay.
Yeah. The Apocalypse Now music.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
And they dropped 500 tennis balls into the water. And each tennis ball had a letter in it. And everybody had to run into the water and collect them they had teams and play beach Scrabble on the beach using those tennis balls as teams. And then from there, it was tug of war and kayaking races and everything. It was a whole day of really fun beach activities. That's when budgets were budgets and you could bring in helicopters. But that was...
You bring in helicopters. I love when groups play tug of war. I remember when my dad, it was for my brother's birthday, and they were doing tug of war, and he thought, I don't know if this will translate, but that you should have a handle. So instead of holding onto the rope, he roped a little loop around each of their little hands to pull.
Oh, God.
And as soon as they all pulled, it cinched. Yeah, and like 13, 11-year-olds just screaming. Yeah. So did the DMC down in St. Thomas say, hey, we've done this before. This is a great wow. Was this one of the options, or is this something you folks came up with?
Honestly, it was a combination. They had not the tennis balls, but they had the helicopters and maneuvers, and they had some beach Olympic stuff that they would do. So they certainly had the core of it. And then we just went a little crazy with it.
So besides, let's say an outdoor event like that, and I know you're a big proponent of getting people outdoors, right?
Absolutely.
So how do you do that? I mean, I know when people go outdoors, they kind of feel like that's our break time. So now you're, sort of training their mind to go, hey, we're going to give you a little benefit. You want to go outside? We're going to go outside, but we're going to get some stuff done.
Got to be on the agenda.
It's got to be on the agenda. So tell me about that.
So last year I did a meeting at this resort in Northern Virginia. It was a series of old buildings. So we were inside, and it was gorgeous. It was September and it was beautiful. And we did not want to be inside the whole time. So we broke up into groups and we set up little areas with picnic tables, and we had a bonfire, and we put some people around there, and we put on the agenda alternative breakouts, I think is the way we put it. And we did ask people to wear super comfortable. This is not the dress to impress. This is the dress to sit on the ground kind of environment. So you have to prepare people for that.
So they go outside. What was the intent? What did you want them to accomplish?
They were working on breaking down what their values were as an organization. So they needed their creative hats on as much as their logical corporate hats. And I just think that that's easier when you're out in the fresh air.
It was a breakout, obviously. Small groups of what, 8, 10 people?
I think the largest one was 8.
Are they in different designated areas? Are they around each other? And do they have the things that we would see inside? A flip chart? They have things to record things?
Yeah. So we weren't recording anything, but everybody had a flip chart. Everybody had tables and chairs to sit on, and drinks and snacks. Everyone was comfy. You want everybody to be comfy so they can do what they're doing. And it wasn't very difficult to organize. I imagine nobody was farther apart than about 200 feet.
It was a pandemic protocol that inspired this idea?
I think pandemic protocol has inspired me to do a lot of things differently. And one is...
I want to hear about that. So tell me about that. That's exciting.
I've always liked to be outside. I think outside is always the place to be when you can. You talked about being in these beautiful places and not seeing them. I call it the ballroom tan. Right. You see the taxi, the airport, the taxi, the hotel, the taxi, the airport, and you're home. Right. But you're on a beautiful island somewhere, or you're in a forest and you don't see any of it. And that's always very frustrating. So that's always been in my head. But the pandemic and the conversations around fresh air and circulation and all that, and hotels talking about how they have these new air filtration systems and everything. What's better than outside?
Very filtrated.
It's so filtrated. It's so filtered. And so I guess the inspiration to be outside's always been there. The logical reasoning for the clients has been there much more so. The openness has been there much more so since the pandemic.
Right. And so I know you're a relationship person. I know that this business is based on relationships, partnerships. How does your collaborative process work? I mean, are you presenting ideas? Are there times where they're coming to you with some ideas? And how do you handle when someone comes to you and go, either you just know from experience it's not going to work. I'm sure that's based on the relationship you have. You can be as candid as you want. But talk to me a little bit about your collaborative process.
I like to really be in the weeds with clients on theming and process and flow and content. I love to know what they're trying to get to and get deep into that with them. And it depends on the client. Most of my clients want my input on everything. Some of them don't yet know how good it is to have somebody who's done a gajillion of these give you input. It's hard to get me to shut up. So no matter who the client is or whether they're paying me for content development or not, they're going to get some of it. I can't really help myself if I know something's not going to work or I know something's perfect for them. Then I'll push. No, but most people are really interested in what I have to say, or at least pretend really well to be.
Yeah, I know that process, what we're being hired to do. And as, I come into the event space as either an event MC or keynote, but when I'm emceeing an event, I'm there for the whole time. I'm just as concerned of the overall picture and how this is going to look like to the audience. It's different in the event space than, let's say, if this was like professional television or movies. You have your role, you're the actor, that's what you do. The director doesn't want to hear your advice. But it's very hard for me to sometimes go, what would be a better suggestion? I know you think it might be good for me to come up on stage and introduce the color guard and the national anthem and this and that. Why don't we do that as a VOG? And then I get, what is a VOG? Well, voice of God, why don't you do that? And let's create the moment that I come on stage as a big moment, because we ultimately have more experience than they do. And it's a way to be able to, it's the phrasing of how you do it. Can I make a suggestion? What I think would work a little bit better. And from what I'm hearing from you is there are times where you are going beyond what they've hired you for because you want the best possible experience for everyone.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you probably do the same thing. I've worked with a few MCs before that just really are so incredibly prepared and knowledgeable about what they do and what the flow is supposed to look like, but also gain that knowledge about their clients like you do, right? You're out there making sure that you understand who you're dealing with, and it's got to be at more than one level. You have to know the company culture. You have to know what their goals are. You can't walk in as you or as me without getting a much more 3D picture of who they are and still do as good a job as you could if you knew everything. As the person in the room, my clients that I've been the most successful with, that have had the most successful meetings and have taken advantage of my skills in the best ways are the ones that bring me into their weekly meeting. And we are talking
true partnership.
We're talking about everything before they get to the point of where they want to have the meeting. Like, let's talk about why we're having the meeting. Let's talk about why we're really having the meeting. Like, what's the second level of why we're having this meeting? And who's really our audience? Is this for the board? Is this for the salespeople? Is this for your clients? Who's it for? And how do we make it all cohesive? How do you take the program, take the MC, make sure he or she understands everything about the people that are presenting, and let them help us to make it into a cohesive program, beginning, middle, and end. You can't have just staggered pieces of a meeting. You should have a flow that starts with, hey, it's cool to be here. And then I love doing the 30,000 foot presentation and then spending the rest of the time breaking into more granular pieces and then closing it with where we're going, how we can use it. That pretty much works with anything.
So you're being brought in for the creative. You're not just, finding, as a meeting planner, an event professional, you're helping them strategically map out their meeting. And that's important to you.
In the best circumstances. Yeah. And sometimes that takes a little while. Sometimes, a client needs to get to know you and then they figure out, or you force it down their throat, how cool you are with other things, what other ideas you have. I've done enough meetings to know what's going to fail miserably. But then for you and I, who have been to a million meetings, you have to remember that just because something's been done a million times doesn't mean that they've done it a million times. The culture is the most important thing. What's the culture of your company? Once I know that, I can get in and do anything.
So do you have an example of one where you would only do this type of activity or deliver this kind of experience because it so fit this culture? This culture was so specific.
Yes. I like to do CSR activities. I like to do volunteer work as a group. I think that's great team building. And it's not team building just for that purpose. It has that extended view. And with companies now being so conscious of, if not of the desire to do well, to do good and to do well, but at least the optics of it, if nothing else. And I had a group, and this was also in New Orleans, different meeting, but we found a school for special needs kids that was privately funded, charitable school. It was founded by a mother of 2 special needs kids who couldn't find placement for her kids. So she started this school and they were on such a shoestring, but it was full. So I brought in a group of 50 and we rebuilt. They painted, they built activity boards, they did landscaping, they did everything to bring it up to speed in so many different ways. They reorganized closets, they did everything. They took this shabby-ish old building and brought it back to life. And it took 8 hours and 10K, and everyone was dead exhausted at the end. It was a lot of physical work, a lot of manual labor, and we were around kids, and there were a lot of things that might not work with every group, but oh my God, it was fantastic.
Everyone must have felt great after that.
They did, and they did great. They did really good things, and at the end, we catered in dinner for the parents so that we had all these to-go meals when their parents came to pick up the kids as like the final cool thing.
I'm getting a little emotional here. I'm emotional on the podcast, but that's really, really sweet. I mean, talk about a 10 out of 10 event. You nailed it on that one. So speaking of 10 out of 10, a lot of times I like to ask the guests, that's a 10 out of 10. What's an 11? I mean, this one's bordering. This one's bordering 11, but more globally, more metaphorically, what does an 11 out of 10 look like?
I'm going to go with the meeting in Barcelona where we rented out Casa Batlló, which was Gaudi's residence, which looks like Dr. Seuss built it. And we rented out the whole building, and we had about 250 people. And we had all traditional like tapas and flamenco dancers and sangria and vermouth and Spanish guitarists and people walking around eating ham. And it was just spectacular. It was beautiful, and it was moving, and it was weird, and it was walking distance from our hotel. It was just a perfect night.
And you could feel that when there's just that sort of buzz, like everyone's almost blown away. How did this go so perfectly? And everyone's kind of floating.
Yeah. And, I'll always say, I'll grab like the CEO or somebody and say, you hear that? Listen. That's the sound of a good meeting. Like there's a certain buzz in the room, a certain level of noise where it's not yelly. You can hear people talking over the music. You can't really hear what anybody's saying because everybody's talking. But there's a certain sound that I'm so in tune to at an event where you just know everything's going swimmingly. Everybody's smiling and everything sounds good and smells good, but there's a buzz.
Right. And that buzz, that it's an intuitive feeling too. Everyone feels it. That's when you have a great meeting, when everyone feels it. They're out of their head. They're just there. They're present. Everyone having a great time. Exactly. Bonni, this has been such a pleasure to meet you and to chat with you. We can go on, but at some point we have to come to an end. So thank you so much for joining us here on No More Bad Events, and hope to run into you somewhere out in a ballroom somewhere near you.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Bonni. That's it for now. I've been your host, Scott Bloom, corporate event MC and comedic keynote speaker. And of course, your connoisseur of connections. Oh, by the way, if you're interested, you can book me for your next event on eSpeakers Marketplace at espeakers.com/marketplace. And if you like what you heard, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you loved what you heard, drop us a review and don't forget to share with your friends. No More Bad Events is produced and presented by eSpeakers. Thanks so much for listening. Now go out and make your event a great one.